Hello, world. This is America's Supermom, and this is a special edition that I call the Corona Chronicles. During this time, we are suffering from a pandemic that is affecting everyone across the world. We are joined with the rules and regulations of being shelter in place, which means we are limited with the ability to go about our daily business, confined to our homes based on a coronavirus that has been sweeping the entire world. For some people, the effects could be mild. For others, it can be fatal. So we are coming together as a community, as a family during this time of difficulty to share what it is like in our part of the world, how we are affected, and the things that we have in common, what kind of problems that are taking place in our industries and in our relationships and finances, and coming together so that we can plan for a better tomorrow. As this epidemic or pandemic crosses the world, we are waiting for relief. We're waiting for the virus to die off and for us to go back to some state of normalcy, whatever that may be, after things kind of settle down. So, what is that going to look like once the dust settles? How are things going to be different? So, as we go through this process, we're coming together as a world to create ideas, strategies, connect in ways that we have never connected before. So, that is the purpose of the special podcast that I call the Corona Chronicles, so that we can get some insight and have empathy and compassion on one another, create new innovative ideas that can not only improve our life, but our fellow brothers and sisters across the world. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. I want to thank you guys for listening today. I'm really excited about my next guest, Matthew Silverman. We actually have met through mutual friend Melanie Richards, and we see each other at least once a week, I would say, for coffee in the mornings. This is something that has organically transpired based on this situation we're in with this global pandemic and making connections virtually. So I'm really excited to introduce him to the audience and hear his insight on, the time that we're in, how we could, continue to have a positive mindset moving forward and what that landscape kind of looks like from his perspective. So at this time, I'm going to give Matthew the opportunity to introduce himself before we dive into the interview.
Well, thanks, Lachelle. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad to be here. It's a pleasure, and when we do see each other frequently on this
Mm-hmm.
coffee talk with Christopher Knight, and that has kind of
Mm-hmm.
you never know who's going to be there.
Right.
It's been fun. It's been kind of keeping me somewhat grounded, which I think um, isn't something you just take for granted these days. Having something
Right.
that's regular that you do,
Mm-hmm.
since there's so few things that are regular other than going from the bedroom to the to what I call my office. But
Right.
and when I go there, I do, and this will be, I guess, the introduction of what I do. I I'm a writer by trade, and
Mm-hmm.
I am an editor as well, and I've written a dozen or so books. And in the recent years, I have been working with people on writing their own story, whether it's for their business or for themselves, because there's a lot of people that always want to get around to writing a book, and I'm the person that you go to when that's something you want to do, and you want to actually do it, as opposed to something you think that you do. Because it's not as hard
Mhm.
as you think, but you do have to do some work on it. And I'm one of my jobs is to help get people in that mindset. And I do work every day with people, on their businesses if they want to sound their best, or write stuff for them if that's not their forte. So I kind of do the stuff that people want to make better or don't want to be bothered with. So I
Mm.
that's sort of my role.
Awesome. Now, so this is just a great topic to cover is this book writing because so many people are at home, they've got a lot of time on their hands, and a lot of the excuses of I don't have time or I have this to do are eliminated right now. So for people who are listening that say, you know what, you're right, I do need to get started with that book, and they may have been feeling overwhelmed in the past, what would be some advice to kind of just get them started on that journey?
Um, well, I do. I because it's not something that everyone does or is thinking about. Maybe in their upfront mind, that I usually meet with people, and they can contact me at silvermanediting.com, and they can send me an email, or
Mhm.
right through the site. I would just suggest saying, I heard you on with Lachelle, just because I get a lot of
Mhm.
things from robots coming in here, or other strange
Oh.
things that make no sense. So um,
Mhm.
that's a good start. And I do like a half an hour meeting with them. And I used to sell stuff, so I really try hard not to oversell. Because that was one of the reasons I stopped selling stuff,
Mhm.
is that I just constantly putting my foot on the accelerator. I like people to do stuff if they feel comfortable with it. Um,
Right.
and we can start off small, and you can say, this just isn't working for me, or and I can certainly, and I work with people's budgets if they have an amount in mind. And I always think something is better than nothing. A lot of the several of the people that I work with, what they want to do is leave something for their family. There's a
Mhm.
lot of people that yeah, they just don't, it just doesn't come up in in families so much the way it might have in previous generations. There's so much that the kids are doing, and everything like that, or they're embarrassed to talk about it. I mean, it's just the kids, like, they don't want to see the kids roll their eyes. But if you put it down on paper, it's something that is or you can do it on we can do it virtually as well, like on on a Facebook book or something like that. Or you can publish it
Mhm.
on your own as well. I don't promise anything of that it's going to be the next New York Times best-selling memoir, but trying to get something that's true to you, and what your life has been about, and what you want to impart to others. Or because time goes by, and it's something that you can leave behind to others, share with them now, and something that they can always have.
That's good. Now, so what type of work should somebody do before they talk to you? So, like, should they have an outline, or, I mean, what does that kind of look like? We go from saying you want to write a book, but what is the homework maybe that somebody should do before they begin to talk to you?
Well, I mean, I can say from experience, an outline is a good place to start, because it gives you some idea what you want to cover, but it's not necessary at all. I've written a bunch of different books, and a lot of times I'll write out an outline, and when I'm like in the middle of the book, I'll have to go back and dig out in the outline. It's like, did I actually talk about any of that stuff? I'm like, oh yeah. That's a lot of the purpose of the outline is just to get your mind going, and a starting off point. But it's also something that we can work through, that you don't it's there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I'm always open to doing it. However, the person feels good about it. If you have an outline, or I want to start here, or or that, or actually a good idea while you're doing it is actually reading a memoir. I would say the best thing to
Mm,
do, and it doesn't even have to be. It can be a book that's sort of like a memoir, or nonfiction, or a fiction, or something like that. Um, because the more you read, the better you write, and the more you think about things,
mm.
and sort of compartmentalize them, which is some of the work that you have to do to get it on paper, or
That's
or
good.
type it out. I keep saying on paper, but it doesn't necessarily even have to be on paper.
Right, I know what you mean. Yeah. Now, so you have written over a dozen books. So, for somebody who is starting out and they just like, man, he's written 12 books, how long does a book usually have to be? Because some people could be like, that's just so overwhelming because, they just have this idea that a book is a novel, so to speak. So, what is the average, for a book that maybe somebody is doing for the first time? How many pages and what does that look like?
Um, that it is totally up to them. If they wanted full length, you know, um, type of manuscripts, those can run like 80,000 words, or so,
Mhm.
maybe a little more, maybe a little less, and that's a lot of work. I mean, but one thing that I try and tailor it to what the person wants. I have this one gentleman I've been working with, and I work with him at another job, so I know him really well, and he takes a lot of photos. So what I did was take when we're going through some little progress, areas, and what I did was take a picture of him, and then I put it with some of the stuff he wrote, because we've been doing a little workshop where he and I just work together, actually with a couple of other people, um, a couple of, maybe once, I think it's once a week, and it's amazing how much stuff you accrue on there, and I'll throw them out
Mm.
a word or an idea, and we just start writing, and we go from there, and it doesn't have to follow any kind of narrative uh, point.
Mm.
Sometimes, like a good memoir focuses on, that you'll see published or at the bookstore or whatever. You'll see that they focus on a small area of time, that at the same time only deals with like 3 or 4 years, deals with their whole life at the same time, and that is a different way of doing it.
Mhm.
But I think there's 100 different ways of doing it. And one of the things about talking with somebody first is just see if it's something they want to do, and if how they might want to go about it. We can just start off like,
Mhm.
here's a couple of ideas. Let's go do this right now. And um, what people will do is they'll write something, and then they'll send it to me, and I can. I'm an editor and worked with a lot of different books as besides being a writer, and that's one of my I
Mm.
to be honest, I like that better, and I think I'm better at it, is taking other people's words, making it sound, getting a sound throughout an entire manuscript, so it sounds authentic, and
Mm.
take a long story, make it shorter, or take a little thing and let's dig into that a little bit more, you know, or maybe just toss this out because it doesn't really have anything to do with what you're talking about, and we can save it for something else.
Mhm. Now this is so true because a lot of people um explain exactly. So you said that it's something with the word choice and making sure you're keeping the right tone throughout the book that you're writing. The benefits of an editor because some people are like, oh, I'm just going to self publish. And, you have the publisher, the editor, and, illustrator and different um, different roles that are played with that book being done, but explain the importance of the editor, because some people may feel like, oh, that's something optional. What's the difference of a manuscript with an editor as opposed to not having one?
Is it some people, might not need one. There's some people that come out fully formed and ready to go, and it's like they'll be doing this and they'll say, "Why haven't I been doing this my whole life?" And but most people I've found need somebody to just sort of go through it with them and even push them a little bit. Say, let's go do some of this. We have a little extra. We had, there's some time now. This is a great time to be working on this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, that's part of it as well, and just getting it in a form that people can relate to. Um, you know, I, an ideal way of doing it that I've been working with has been to take, do it in snippets. Here's a story here, or and if someone
Mhm.
comes in with with an idea they want from this narrative from here on in, that we can certainly work through that. I will say that not everything that you churn out is gold. I can tell you that from
Mhm.
experience,
Mhm.
but a lot of it can be polished up, and something that doesn't seem that promising at first, you may be able to use that somewhere else, and that's one of the areas where I can come in handy, is helping them find a way of telling the story that follows a progression, even if it's just a series of vignettes. Here's a chapter about, when I lived in this city, and here's something about when I went to school, and here's something I remember about my grandmother who's been dead for 50 years, um, and all of it has
Mhm.
something, and a lot of it is just seeing where it takes you, because when I work in the memoir class, I'll throw out a word or two, just an idea. And sometimes you just find the thing writes itself, and you kind of look around and it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was in 1972 with, with my mother or something like that.
Mm.
And we were at the store that hasn't existed in 5 decades or something.
I love that. Now, so what are some tips for people to follow to make their copy like more compelling or inspirational? Because when it comes to books, it's a matter of keeping the attention of the reader. So, what are some tips to uh, keep in mind when
That's
we are
that's a really good
writing?
question, and good thought to point that out. Something to keep in mind, I think, is uh, what what's the point? What do you want to do with this? What is your overall goal? Do you want to leave something to your grandchildren? Or maybe
Mhm.
it's for somebody that lives far away and you don't really get to, you talk to them on the phone, but it's kind of at a certain level. It's like, what do you who are you writing it for? Is
Mhm.
uh
Mm.
what do you want to tell them? I had the situation where, as the person I was closest to in my life, like my mother, I did not realize that that
Mhm.
she, that this had happened to her until after she was dead, and it was like, it almost feels like a slap in the face, and it's like, and one of the reasons that I work with
Mm.
people with this is to give them an opportunity to to tell it, to put it out there, because like what she thought was
Mm.
this horrific secret that she could never tell me, I was like, that really wasn't that big of a deal. But what hurt was that you didn't think that I could deal with it, even though it was 30 years old.
Right.
And the goal, I think,
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
to, at least as far as I see it, is to take it where you want to leave it. What part of my life would be interesting to this person? And maybe it's to write it to your whole family, but maybe you want to just pick out one person. Like they'll say that someone who's doing a talk or doing stand-up comedy or giving a speech, they'll pick one person out of the audience and they'll do it for them. And doing this is
Mhm.
a similar, it can be a similar idea, except you don't have to necessarily deal with the stage fright, and you can pick it up as you go along, and you know take it, and a lot of these, if they're four people, they're very casual. You can stop there, and then we move on to this. You can tell them what
Mhm.
you've experienced, because sometimes kids will roll their eyes, but when you go through someone's stuff later on in life, or when they're living far away, or maybe they're in a nursing home, or maybe they're no longer with you, you're like, wow, this is a real treasure, you
Mhm.
know, and uh,
Mm.
just something that when I started doing this and working with other people, I thought of this as an area that I thought could be beneficial. I took a sort of by accident took a memoir course, and I ended up taking it for like about 5 years. And I went there, thinking it was something else, and
Mhm.
it was like, memoir. I'm not interested in this. And after one time doing it with this group that's up near where I am in Woodstock, New York, I went as long as they had it on the day that I could go, and they moved it to another day I couldn't go. And by then I had a blog, and I was amazed that when I had the blog, even though I'm a writer, how personal it got, and
Mm.
how I kind of treated it like a diary. I had all this training that I didn't even realize that I was getting. And the first few years, and I have another blog. I do a lot of
Mm.
stuff on baseball, and it was Silverman.com. And the first few years of that, I was writing these things that I had never written before, that were about baseball. There was a lot of baseball in there, but it was a lot about my experience. And I started with like my 10 favorite games that I attended, and there was all this stuff that went up about what was going on in my life. And while the game was important, what was also going on. And I sort of had the training to do that, it was more than just going to a sporting event. It was um, you know it was another chain in the link of life. Not to get too deep.
Mm. I love that. That's good. Now, so a lot of people, so just like, I love this element of blogging and kind of getting personal with it. So you have a lot of writers who they have that book, it's almost done, but there's this element of fear of, who's going to read it. Are they going to resonate with it? Even sometimes with memoirs, like, the situation with your mom, for example, nobody in the family knows some of the things that may be said. So, what would you say to an author who is at that place of this analysis paralysis to get on the
Well,
other side and
that's
just get the
also
book done?
one of the benefits of having somebody look at it, is that they can say, you know,
Mhm.
this is really good. You need to, or and I have to say that a lot of the time, and one of the things I insist on when we do have our little classes, is that everything is positive. Um, sometimes you might want to, for structural reasons, you might want to move something, you might want to lose something, you might want to add something. And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that having a professional look at it can help with. And it's not something, and it's something. Some of the people I work with and some of these other organizations say I'm crazy, because I generally I'll do it by the hour, or we'll say, we'll do it to this amount, and when we get there, we'll see where we are. You know that I don't have all these fancy packages and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I'm looking to help people and do their writing, because I think it's an important thing to leave behind, and I think it's something that people it's kind of sad that people don't like to read as much. And I think it's something that one day, when
Mhm.
maybe when uh, for whatever reason, that the books will be what we actually have to remember this time by, because all this digital stuff, maybe something happens where it's just gone. You know, you just never know. And books,
Yeah.
I've got books that are 100+ years old that just kept on getting handed down. Who knows? Even like video cassettes and things like that. They're almost worthless to have now
Mhm.
because technology fades. But the book has been
Mhm.
pretty solid form to use to transcribe events and feelings and emotions and thoughts um, for, I don't know, 2-3 thousand years, maybe longer. And it's even portable.
Mhm.
The pyramids and the
Mhm.
hieroglyphics not as much, but once they got it
Yeah.
on paper or papri- what is it,
Right.
papyrus, the what the Egyptians used as for
Mhm.
paper. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, papyrus. Yeah. Or yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, tomato, tomato. You know what I'm saying? We all know. But so tell us quickly, like, how did you have to pivot? So like you were talking about the digital, and you still believe the importance. And I'm the same way. There's nothing like reading a book and having it in your hand. Sometimes with this technology, I don't know. I'm just still a paper pen type of person, and love touching things, but how have you had to pivot, in some ways just within your industry during this time and outside of the digital aspect with the writings? What other things do you foresee when it comes to
Well,
writers
one
that
of
you
the
might
ways
have
I
to be
pivoted
flexible with?
was I had a book that was coming out, and I had just left my job, and I had this networking group with BNI in New Paltz, New York, and I had to go there every week, and they were essentially I was they were paying well, they were paying for my membership that year because I was like an officer. So I'm like, I got to come here for the next 7 or 8 months, and
Mm,
so I started talking about this book I had, and then I'm like, I can't sell this book for 8 months every week. Whoever's going to buy it's going to buy it after a while, and or they're not.
mhm,
And so I started working with some of the people in that group. And one of the things that I had to pivot, and one of the reasons that I had gone out back into the workforce was because I just, for years I was able to sort of get by writing different stuff for people, but that market really dried up. So I really had to focus on local, which I hadn't done
mhm,
before. And that's been really helpful because, and to be honest, I work with people from areas that I wouldn't even consider local, but I had to start thinking local at least. Like, how is a way that I can work with individuals as opposed to
mm,
magazines or websites or different ones like that. That there's just so much rejection
mm,
involved, and there's so much door knocking and walking in with your hat in your hand, and there's just fewer jobs that are worth all that effort these days. So I decided that if take what I do and find a way that it would be helpful to others, and go from there. And I actually had a couple people that were in my group that asked me to help them with things, and whether it was to make their relaunch of their website better. And and I don't even do the website. I just create the content for it. And and from there, I always wanted to do the memoir class, but
mhm.
right now, sort of working on both ends of it as well. And it's really come in handy because publishing right now is completely at a standstill. At least it is for middle of the road people like myself. And I have an agent knocking on doors and stuff, and she can't get anywhere. So
Mhm. Mhm.
this has been really helpful in being able to continue to do stuff and not just sit around being frustrated on my part. And I also feel like I'm helping people.
I love that. Now, so this is key because a lot of people have skills right now, but they have tunnel vision about the job or industry that they've always been doing. So, people have had to, if you're on a live event person, you've had to transition to being online or virtual, whatever you want to say about that. But the key that it sounds like in your case is that you were clear about what you did. So, what advice would you give somebody, to make that clear? What type of questions or dialogue should they have so that they can pivot and do other things? Like you said, you wouldn't have thought you'd be working on websites, but you're still doing your zone of genius,
Yeah,
but it's
that
just
that
on a
I
website
had
instead of
to
being a book.
see where the need was, and I have like a local group. But if I'm doing one thing and they're all doing something else, I sort of had to find an area of connection. And I have to admit that it sort of came about because people were asking me, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. That this is something I can do. I can do for them quickly,
Mm,
and can help out people that I know, and plus you hear all them talk about their business every week. That I know their business really well because I hear the same. I hear them talk about it all the time. So that's kind of helpful in that particular group. But
mm,
as far as the people looking to change, it's not easy. It's not always profitable, and in my case it's not always something that people even understand what it is. But you sort of have to be true to what you do, and even if it's not the
mm,
see where the need is. And if someone's like, oh, I have someone, I because I've been getting a lot of, oh, my, you should have talked to my grandmother. You know she was, before she passed, she was, had all these great stories and all this other stuff. And that's a missed opportunity for not just for me but for their whole family. And being able to work with people like that, that's a great thrill on my part, but something that, and sometimes looking to see how you can help others is a way that you end up helping yourself.
I love that. That's good. Now, so I guess the last question I would ask is a lot of people are, they're finishing up their profiles, they are
Hmm.
fine tuning some of their bios, about me type things on, Facebook or some of these different social media platforms. So for something that is like a sneak peek or a ad, so to speak, about this individual through their profile, what are some key things they should have in their copy in order to be successful in their
That's another
industry
great
and how
question.
they present themselves?
People tell me that bullet points are popular, and they don't, just because a bullet point, you can just think of it
Okay.
as a sentence, even though it might not necessarily need a period. But something that is
Mm,
kind of cuts to the nitty gritty with a little introduction and a little bit about what your goals are. And goals are always tricky when you're in something that's very open ended,
mhm.
like that. But if it's for your site, make sure that what your
Mhm.
goal is coincides with what the average person looking for on your site, or looking for someone in this particular field, would want to get out of it. And that's a good way of getting the job
Mm,
done. A picture people like, and if they get stumped, I've written those for people as
mhm.
well. And and because sometimes people don't know what to say about themselves. It's like, I'm
Mm,
me, or that they don't even know what to say about their business. They're good at their business. They're busy doing all the stuff that's involved with doing it,
right.
whether it's going to or they when they're off work, they don't want to be doing this other stuff. They've got taxes to do, or they've got their family to see with, or
Right.
they may even have another job that they do, or a side hustle, as people like to say.
Mhm. Mhm. So true. Well, those are some good points. Well, I have really
Oh,
enjoyed this. I've got a couple pages of notes. As usual, I'm always taking notes and listening because right now, this is good, but when I get off this interview,
Yeah, I could
kids
see
are
that
like
happening.
in overdrive.
My
So I
kids
want to make sure I don't forget
are
anything.
older, and they're pretty much on their own for a lot of stuff. But I can't even use that as an excuse, and I'll forget. So I that is
Mhm.
that's another key thing to throw in there, is that when someone says something that you want to remember, write it down, because that's the best way of doing it. Whether it's one of these uh, things
Mhm.
you're watching, or classes that we're all taking online classes and different things like
Mhm.
that. That taking notes is really helpful. That's one thing I learned about being a reporter. I
Mhm.
don't do any of the stuff that I learned how to do then, but I find that I do stuff from that all the time, even though I haven't
Oh,
been a reporter since, I think, 1996 or so. You know,
yeah. Mhm. Mhm. So true. That's good. Well, we really appreciate all your insight, Matthew.
they
And
can go to
what is again is the
silvermanediting.com,
best way
which
for
is
people to get a hold of you?
a site. It's not too complex, but it does have a place where you can contact me and tell them Lachelle sent you, and or just say something that you're interested in it in the caption name, because, like I said, there's a lot of robots out there that are contacting me that I know aren't that interested. they just want they just want me to click on something.
Yeah, I understand. Now, the other question
See, that's why you
is,
got to
what
write
was I
stuff
going to
down.
say? My daughter just came in the other room and just got me off track. Oh, what are some books that you could recommend? So, what's your favorite book that you wrote, and
Okay.
then maybe some
Well,
books
if
or
you like
podcasts that you
baseball,
would recommend for the audience.
or actually, this one was about a lot of other stuff than baseball.
Mhm.
But Swingin' 73 is the favorite book that I've worked on, because it dealt with a few baseball teams, what was going on that particular season. But it was 1973, and there's so much stuff going on in the world. It almost makes you embarrassed for all the stuff
Mm.
that people think is going on now. That you also think we would have learned from, even though it was 47 years ago. But that
Right.
I had a lot of fun doing that, and there was a lot of work and a lot of tracking down. But I think that one came out the best um, of the ones that I've done. A lot of other stuff are very team specific. As far as books on memoir, there's one by
Okay.
Mary Carr. She teaches memoir, and actually has written some really good ones. So
Mhm.
Marykarr. Those are a couple of hers, and she's done a few that I've
Okay.
read, and are really good. And Vladimir Nabokov, the guy who wrote Lolita, I read one of or listened to one of his, the Speak Memory, about and you think your life
Mm.
went to heck. He was Russian, not Russian aristocracy, and lost it all in the Russian Revolution, and really isn't that bitter about it at all, and actually had about six different careers before he even got to
Mm.
writing books that you can still get in trouble in some countries for reading. Oh, it's called Speak, Memory.
Wow. And the
and
name of
and
that is called
and that
Speak
and that
Memory?
one and it's from reading some of these books
Wow. Okay.
that they'll list other books that are great memoirs and stuff like that, and those are a couple of people that I thought of that were good,
Mhm.
and some of them I've have been books that I've aren't really that
Mhm.
popular, but the person has a really distinctive point of view. And it's always, there's usually memoir section in, I would say at
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble, but some that can be hard to get to. But on, you can look up online and see some listings. And I always say go to your local bookstore; they'll give you some good advice too.
Okay. All right. Well, we really appreciate it. I love reading, so I'm a book collector. I try to get to them, but it's just something about just seeing them on my bookshelf that I love, and it's like I think I can read thousands of books, and you can only read one
Mm-hmm.
at a time. It's funny. but that is one of the things I collect. But really appreciate your words of wisdom, Matthew. And
Well,
are
just
there any
keep
final words that you want to share with
thinking,
everybody?
because at one point this whole thing is going to make a great story. uh it could be your depression. I grew up with parents taught,
Mm,
grew up during the depression, that really had some hardships and things like that, that made them the people that they became. That maybe
mm-hmm.
this thing that seems like an imposition is actually an opportunity, and for your kids or your loved ones as well.
Mm.
That's the pivot.
I love that. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you again. Yeah, that's the pivot. You're right. I want to thank you again for your
All right, Lachelle, thanks
insight
so much.
and look forward to speaking with you
All
again
right, we'll see you
soon. Okay.
tomorrow. Take care.
All right. You have a good afternoon.
Gotta love technology. Really appreciated this interview. There were points where some of the recording overlapped. I don't know what that's about. But great nuggets about recognizing that we all have a story. That it's important to sometimes capture those memories and things that we could do in order to enhance the impact that we have for others. Even something as simple as the copy that is on your profiles for your social media platforms. So I want to thank Matthew for his insight. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please email me at info@LachelleAtkins.com. You can also reach out to me through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, or my YouTube channel. And I would love to have you on the show to share your insight, things of that you could enlighten the whole world about. Your perspective is unique, different to you, and it's important that we share it to make the world a little brighter. So that is all I have for today. I want to thank you guys again for listening. And if you're interested in video recording, please try StreamYard. My link is in the show notes. Have a beautiful day. Bye.